the crash that shook digital faith. It happened faster than anyone expected. Screens turned red, charts collapsed, and confidence vanished almost overnight. What looked like unstoppable growth suddenly revealed its fragility. Prices that once felt inevitable fell without mercy. Fortunes evaporated. Belief followed close behind. To understand why this crash still matters today, we have to remember what came before it. Exponential gains, endless optimism, a narrative that technology had finally escaped cycles. Every surge created new certainty. Every headline promised a future rewritten, and every warning was dismissed as fear. But markets don't reward belief forever. They test it. As speculation intensified, fundamentals faded. Projects multiplied faster than understanding. White papers replaced working systems. Promises outpaced proof. The crash wasn't caused by a single failure. It was caused by excess. Too much leverage. Too much confidence. Too little restraint. When momentum reversed, there was nowhere to hide. Liquidity dried up. Trust collapsed. And the same voices that praised innovation now demanded explanations. For many, this was a breaking point. The moment digital money felt exposed, not as revolution, but as risk. The question wasn't whether prices would recover. It was whether belief ever would, because markets can rebuild. But shaken faith leaves deeper scars. And this time, the scars were impossible to ignore. As prices fell, stories changed. What had been framed as progress was suddenly called speculation. What was once inevitable became irresponsible. New investors panicked. Veterans retreated. Social feeds filled with regret and anger. Everyone searched for someone to blame. But blame was difficult to assign. There was no central authority, no executive to resign, no institution to rescue the market. The system did exactly what it was designed to do. It reflected behavior, and behavior had been reckless. Exchanges halted withdrawals. Platforms collapsed. Projects disappeared. And once again, familiar failures returned. The irony was painful. A system built to remove intermediaries had rebuilt them during the boom. And when they failed, the damage felt familiar. Critics seized a moment. They declared the experiment over. They said this proved digital money was unstable. That trust could not survive without control. Supporters responded differently. They pointed out what never failed. The core network kept running. Blocks kept forming. Consensus never broke. The crash didn't destroy the system. It destroyed illusions. Illusions that price equals progress. That adoption equals understanding. That growth can outrun fundamentals forever. For those watching closely, this moment clarified something essential. Volatility wasn't a bug. It was a consequence of freedom meeting speculation. The market punished excess. It rewarded patience, and it exposed who believed in price instead of principle. As panic spread outward, a quieter question emerged among those who stayed. If belief can survive this, what does that say about its foundation? The answer would take years to form, but the direction was already clear. As the dust settled, silence replaced noise. Speculators vanished. Volume thinned. Attention moved elsewhere. What remained was quieter, smaller, and more serious. Developers kept building, not because prices demanded it, but because systems still needed improvement. Security mattered more than hype. Infrastructure mattered more than headlines. This phase didn't feel exciting. It felt disciplined, almost boring. And that was the point. The crash had filtered participants. Those chasing momentum left. Those committed to principles stayed. What survived wasn't belief in profit, but belief in process. Slowly, confidence began to reform, not through rallies, but through reliability. The network kept working, day after day, regardless of sentiment. Meanwhile, lessons hardened, risk management improved, custody practices matured, assumptions were challenged, excess was remembered. This wasn't recovery. It was recalibration. People stopped asking how fast it could grow. They started asking how long it could last. Sustainability replaced excitement. Resilience replaced optimism. The crash had stripped away fantasy. What remained was reality. And reality, while less glamorous, was stronger, because systems that survive collapse earn a different kind of trust, not enthusiasm, but respect. As markets stabilized, the conversation shifted again, away from price charts, toward fundamentals, toward use cases, toward long-term relevance. Digital faith wasn't restored quickly. It was rebuilt slowly, deliberately, scar by scar. And in that rebuilding, something unexpected emerged. A system tested by failure had become harder to dismiss than one fueled only by success. The crash didn't end belief. It refined it. What broke wasn't the system. It was the story people told themselves about it. That innovation was immune to cycles. That growth meant validation. That belief could replace discipline. None of that survived the fall. What survived was quieter, stronger, more honest. The network didn't ask to be trusted again. It simply continued, block after block, unimpressed by fear, unchanged by doubt. That persistence mattered, because trust rebuilt through survival is different from trust built through excitement. The crash taught a difficult lesson. Freedom amplifies outcomes, both good and bad, without guardrails. Markets reflect behavior with brutal accuracy. There were no rescues, no coordinated interventions, no authority stepping in to soften the impact, only consequence. And consequence reshapes belief. Those who stayed learned restraint. They learned patience. They learned that faith without understanding is just speculation. Digital money didn't emerge stronger because it recovered. It emerged stronger because it endured failure publicly, without hiding, without rewriting rules, without asking for sympathy. That endurance changed the conversation. This wasn't about getting rich. It was about whether a system could survive disbelief. And it did. The crash that shook digital faith did something unexpected. It gave belief a foundation rooted in reality. Because when something survives collapse, it no longer needs hype to justify its existence. It only needs time. What no one anticipated was how deeply the crash would reshape expectations for the people who came after. New participants entered the ecosystem, carrying the memory of collapse before they had experienced growth. That order mattered. It changed their baseline. Instead of assuming everything only went up, they assumed volatility was normal. Instead of dismissing risk, they built around it. The crash became part of the curriculum. For anyone serious enough to stay, it taught proportion. It taught humility. It taught that the distance between peak and trough was not an aberration. It was a system expressing itself honestly. And honesty, even when painful, is a more durable foundation than any narrative about guaranteed returns. The scars remain visible, not as wounds, as reminders that this was never easy money. It was consequential money. And consequential money demands a different kind of engagement. Slower, more deliberate, less dependent on hope, more grounded in understanding. The crash that shook digital faith ultimately strengthened the faith that survived, not by removing doubt, but by making doubt survivable. Subscribe to join the journey. There is something clarifying about surviving a moment. When everyone around you believes the story is over, it forces a separation between those who were there for the price and those who were there for the principle. The crash performed that separation with brutal efficiency. No announcements necessary, no surveys required. Behavior sorted everyone into one of two groups: those who left and those who didn't. The ones who stayed didn't stay because they were certain. They stayed because they understood something that couldn't be priced. That systems with honest rules are worth defending through their worst moments, because the worst moments are exactly when rules are most tested. And rules that hold under that kind of pressure are the only rules worth trusting. That realization didn't make the crash less painful, but it made the pain meaningful. And meaning in finance is rarer than most people realize. That meaning compounded over time. Each subsequent cycle carried the memory of this one. Each new participant inherited the humility that the crash had forced. The ecosystem grew, but it grew differently than it would have without that foundational rupture. More careful, more aware, more honest about the gap between what the technology could do and what the speculation had claimed. The crash didn't just test the system, it shaped it, and the system that emerged bore the mark of that shaping in everything it subsequently became.